Well, tubers, tubettes, and crazy people, welcome back. Listen, the inspiration for doing this video has been this big uptick in personal messages that I've been receiving the last 60 to 90 days from people who have either been with the channel for a while or have just recently subscribed. And the amount of emails, messengers, video chats has gone up like, 30 or 40%, where guys have been wanting to consult with me about cost of living and how much money they make and what do I think that they can do with this much money and that much money. Well, while it's not really my place to tell you how you can live here on X amount of dollars, it did inspire me to take a look at what seems to be a major crisis going on in America right now, and that is inflation and just the simple cost of living. So during this video, I want to do a comparative analysis. I did some research for the last 3 weeks before I made this video about what's going on in America as far as cost of living and inflation. Where it was at when I was there, where it's at today. I don't pretend to know that I know where it's going to go, but I think in this video I can offer up maybe not a solution, but worst case scenario, some options for you if you're finding yourself struggling financially. So that's what I hope to be able to share with you in the upcoming video. All right, here we go. Alrighty then, well, like I said in the video, there's been a big uptick in inquiries about financial matters here and primarily concerns over inflation and the cost of living currently in the United States of America. So 3 weeks ago, I began research on this video. And as my sources, I wanted to share with you who I used. I used the American Census Bureau, Clear Value Tax, Brian at Clear Value Tax, who has a financial YouTube station, Gallup, the National Council on Aging, CNBC, and Monmouth University. All of these entities either conducted polls or research. And so I am going to share with you what some of the results of the polls and the research spelled out. And then I think I can kind of put a button on it by the end of the video, hopefully. Okay, so I'm going to start with what, and I'm going to be looking down, I apologize because I'm reading notes. Brian over at Clear Value Tax, who is a money guy that millions of people follow and I respect. He has been following what the Federal Reserve has done post-pandemic when they printed billions and billions and billions of dollars, which is the major contributor to all of the inflation that's going on today. This huge cash printing machine that went on for years during the pandemic. And his big complaint is that you and me, the average Joe, saw very little of that money that was being printed. Most of it went to, you guessed it, big corporations and scam artists, guys that invented big corporations with so many employees and just skimmed billions of dollars off the top unchecked. But you and me, we got a check. I remember one of them, I think we got 2 or 3 checks, stimulus checks. One was for $600. And the other, I think the biggest was for maybe $1,600. And that was to last us over the time of the pandemic and help us because no one was allowed to go to work or they were restricted. And I don't want to relive all that. But post-pandemic, what happened? Well, of course, inflation went nuts. Supply chains got disrupted. On and on and on. I'll put a link to his channel so that you can watch it more in depth from him as opposed to from me. However, what he brought up was interesting. In the last 3 months, with the Fed raising interest rates, I don't know how many times, but prior to the pandemic, you could get a mortgage loan for about 3%. Post-pandemic, it's leveling out at about 7%. So it's making the American dream, that of buying and owning a home, less and less viable for less and less people. Obviously, the supply is low. The demand is now low because of the higher interest rates. You can buy a lot less house for a lot more money. And why do that? Okay, so what's happened in the last 3 months? Inflation was starting to come down, and then the last 3 reports were a disaster. They were going for a target of 2% inflation. When I say they, the Federal Reserve. 3.1% 3 months ago was the rate of inflation. It ticked up to 3.2% the next month after that. And last month, it bumped all the way up to 3.5, which is a disaster. So clearly, inflation is not being dealt with, reined in, or brought under control. What its future is like, I don't know. I'm not the financial guy. But the information is out there for you to research also. Here's how it broke out. Last month, energy was up 2.1%. Food was up 2.2%. Shelter, 5.7%. And service industries, 5.4%. That is huge. That is untenable. The only way really for the Federal Reserve, according to Brian, to cure this is to try to get more and more people unemployed. And so, which just seems contrary to me, but that's what I'm being told. Now, I'll just let that go for what it is. But I know for a fact that when I moved out here in 2017, prior to that, the only real inflation impact that came into my life the last 10 years that I was living in the States was called pain at the pump. And I remember that when gas went from $2 to $5. So I had one avenue, I guess you could say, that was affecting my wallet, and that was putting gas in my car. It's coming at you guys from all directions. Not only energy, up 2.2%, housing, rents are going through the ceiling. The cost of food, they say the cost of food is going up 2.2%. Brian seems to think that's sugar-coated, that really just buying that, whatever it is, that bag of rice or those potatoes or a steak, just things that you put on the table to feed your family has gone up a lot more than this 2.2%, but that's the number coming out of the Federal Reserve. And then the services industry. So I could only imagine what it must be like to be working and, I'll back up a little bit. I'll go back to some figures that I got from CNBC. Instead of putting my spin on it, we'll just stick with the numbers. Since the pandemic, 26% of Americans feel they need to earn $100,000 to $146,000 to live a comfortable lifestyle. That is 2 adults, 2 kids, and 1 pet. The formula of living comfortable is this. 50% of that income is used to cover your nut. The rent, the car payment, the insurance, etc. 20% is to be put away in savings, and then 30% of that income would be used for discretionary spending. Taking those 2 kids and that 1 dog on holiday would be an example. 20% you're putting away for a rainy day, and half of your money is covering, the mortgage and all that other happy stuff. Well, I don't know how that's working out, because on the poll that I looked at, I saw the 3 cheapest states to live in America right now are Mississippi, Arkansas, and Kentucky. And they're the most affordable right now out of the 50. California and Hawaii, and I think Massachusetts are the top 3 most expensive. So to live that lifestyle of the 50, 20, 30, 50% to cover your expenses, 20% to put away for savings, 30% is discretionary income. In order to achieve that in Mississippi, you would need an income of $109,516. The average income in Mississippi currently is $74,888. Arkansas, to live the 50, 30, 20, $116,511 would need to be the combined income of those 2 adults raising those 2 kids and that 1 dog or cat. But their reality is they are earning $71,383. And Kentucky came in a little better. They too are at $116,815 to do the 50, 20, 30. And yet their income is shortened back down to, and it's better than the others, $86,508. So I am seeing in the 3 most affordable states what it would take to make that 50, 30, 20 formula work, being diminished down to just basically covering the 50%. Living day to day, putting food on the table, gas in the car, paying the insurance, taking the kids to school, buying clothes, other necessities, and this is not having any big vacations, or more importantly, putting away any substantial amount of money in savings towards the future. Where else are we at? Started to look at exodus out of America. In 2023, 50% of all Americans, 161 million passports were issued. 10 years ago, prior to that, only 10% of the population had a passport. So for the last 10 years, half of America is now in possession of a passport. That tells me they're thinking it may be time to get out of Dodge. A poll from Monmouth University said 1/3 of the people polled say they would like to settle in a different country. 61% of the folks that we're talking to are living from paycheck to paycheck. That's 6 out of every 10 Americans do not get to put away 20% or have 30% discretionary income. In 2023 survey of 12,000 expats from 172 countries, the United States had the largest share of people looking to leave the country. I'll say that again. There was a 2020 survey conducted of 12,000 people, aka expats, from 172 different countries. And the majority of those expats or people looking to leave were Americans. They are spending more on health care than other developing nations. 40.2% of retired Americans. Now this is getting into my age category. A little previously there where we were talking about the 2 kids and the dog and the savings account, that was more of the 40-year-olds, 50-year-olds, the late 30-year-olds. Still trying to work, acquire, gather things. But now let's move up to us, the senior citizens, the old folks, the old farts. Guys like you and me, because most people that watch this channel are 55 and older. Unfortunately, 40.2% of all Americans rely on Social Security as their sole source of income. They do not have a side gig. They do not have a part-time job. They do not have another source of income. As of December of 2023, the average Social Security check was $1,767. Now, I looked at a spread on that because it looked a little off. It looked a little low to me. So there is another category called retired. It goes from a low of $1,395 to a high of $1,905. And this is a median number for retired folks receiving an income, be it from Social Security, a retirement fund, annuities, pensions, etc. I'm going to be generous and call it $2,000 a month. Looking at needing $100K to live a normal lifestyle, I don't see where $24,000 fits into that equation. And I cannot figure out where, if I was to leave the Philippines today and move back to America, how I would have a chance in hell of surviving. No matter how much money I've got saved up right now, it would be gone in a whisper. Just getting set up would be impossible. The price of rent, the price of furniture, the price of purchasing a car. I always thought, hey, maybe one day I'll go back to America, you know, when I'm 10 years from now, when me and the wife want to maybe just go back there and kick it because of the better infrastructure and blah, blah, blah. Well, that's remains to be seen. The future is untold. I do know this, that what goes up must come down. So I know that these things like inflation are cyclical, and they tend to run their course, and then just like the housing market, there was a boom, there was a bust, and right now we're experiencing another boom. Will there be a bust? People are predicting that there will, but so far I've seen no data to support that. But I'm sure that at some point in time in the future, the homes will come down. Will they come down like they did during the Big Depression or recession? I don't think so, but who am I? I'm not an expert. I'm just reading the data. All right. So, 1 in 3 Americans right now feel economically insecure. And I look at the data that we just talked about, and I look at the rate of inflation. I know that just from talking to guys on the phone, I always ask them the same stupid question. I go, okay, you're in Mississippi, and you're in California, and you're in Delaware, and you know, I talk to guys from all over the world, a whole bunch recently. And I go, I always ask the same stupid question. How much is a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke? It's the only thing I can relate to. And they all tell me somewhere between $13 and $17 to get a Big Mac, fries, and a Coke. 99-cent stores are out of business. Who would have figured? The dollar menu at McDonald's vanished. These were the things that I remember back prior to 2017 and coming out here that I used to love. I loved the 99-cent store because I would go in there and buy things like toothpaste and toothbrushes and deodorant and stuff that was, you know, whack-a-doodle, $5, $6, $7, $8 at the market or other places. And I'd pick it up for 99 cents. And I'd go in there and spend 20 bucks and come out with just, I felt was a great value. I'm afraid those days have come and gone. A Big Mac out here today, Big Mac, fries, and a Coke, just for a point of reference, costs $5. And when I left America back in 2017, I'm figuring that a Big Mac fries and a Coke probably cost about $5 back then too. So when I left, I just wasn't feeling this inflation crunch. I left due to economic reasons though. I left because I was tired of working. I was burnt out. I didn't want to show up anymore. And I knew that if I moved over here to the Philippines or another country like it, that I would be able to take my dollar, my little Social Security check, and stretch it much, much farther. Well, I feel like that situation was, for me, it was a choice. It wasn't a necessity. I was still working. I could still get a job. I could still make a decent dollar. And rents and food and all that stuff we just discussed was reasonable back in 15, 16, 17 when I was living there. What I made paid for what I needed to spend, and I put some money away. I feel now that you guys are under the pressure of not just maybe wanting to get out from under the pressure of work and bills and all of the other nonsense, and you're in your golden years, but you're feeling almost like you're being pushed out, where for me it was a voluntary thing. So here's my little tidbit of, I don't like to call it advice, but options that I think that you can follow. I got to figure, and I'm figuring maybe you're one of those 50% that went out and got you a passport in the last few years and have considered leaving the country. I live in the Philippines. I will be the first to tell you that you get what you pay for, and that the Philippines is not nirvana. It is not, as they often call, paradise. There are many things that I have to give up, creature comforts, things that I'm used to, things that I took for granted in America that do not exist out here, that I could enjoy if I was still living and making those six figures or those whatever those numbers were to have a comfortable life in America right now. However, to me, the trade-off of the creature comforts versus the lack of pressure from economics, from being able to wake up every morning and know that my little Social Security check, meager as it may be, covers all my nut, plus it gives me the 20 and it gives me that 30 formula. That is alive and well out here. However, I really, really want to emphasize that it comes at a price. And I won't repeat, again, the negatives of the Philippines. I also won't purport that you move to the Philippines. I would recommend that you go online because there are some newer places that have popped up on the list of affordable places to live. I'm not going to list them here. They're there for you to look at. And a lot of them, I think only 3%, are actually here in Southeast Asia. A lot of them have moved locations, and they have different, they have a different vibe. They have a whole different perspective. There's something that you would need to look at. And the good news is no matter where there's a country, there's a YouTuber talking about it. So if you're thinking about the Philippines, maybe you can hang in here with the old dog. And if not, maybe you can find your version of the old dog or whoever your favorite vlogger is in another country, like Portugal, that came up in conversation. All right, kids, I'll see you all in the next video.